tuned in to The Real and the Raw with Queen Renny.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to The Real and the Raw. I'm your host, Queen Renny. All right, you guys, welcome back. This is The Real and the Raw, and it's your girl, Queen Renny. Oh my gosh, y'all. So I have missed y'all. I don't know if y'all have missed me, but it's been a long time, and I'm glad to be back. And so there's just a couple of things that I want to catch y'all up on real quick as far as my life before we jump into season 2, episode 1. We do have a special guest today, so I'm super excited to bring this new content to you guys. I'm just glad to be back, man. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to jump into our real readback segments and just get the flow going again and hearing what's up with y'all also. So just some things that's been going on with me during the break. I think I last spoke with you guys right before Christmas time. It's been a long time, but life is crazy and things just happen. And so sometimes you have to, work things out differently than you expected it to go, which is why expectations don't always help you. But we'll talk about that at another time. But update. So as you guys know, Dom and I had gotten married kind of in the middle of season 1. And so next week, we're actually going to be celebrating 1 year of marriage. Yes, y'all, we have made it a whole year. Give us a round of applause, because Lord knows sometimes this can be hard. But we really have put in the work to make this first year, just about success and growth within our relationship. And so it's been really cool to watch each other grow, but then also to see us make strides together as a couple. So it's been dope. And so shout out to our friends and family who were there to celebrate and to who have kind of just been on the journey since it all began. Another huge thing. So as you all know, my brother had passed away right before I decided to actually start this podcast last year. And as y'all know, he had a baby girl on the way at the time. Well, she is here, y'all, and she just turned 1. She says more than 10 words, and she just started walking. And she literally is like the spitting image of her dad and her mom. And so it's been an amazing time watching her grow and learn and just being a part of all of her first year. And y'all, I just love her. She can't do no wrong around me. She literally acts like me when I was a child, so I just be encouraging it and just letting her do her thing. And so then lastly, and I think one of my proudest moments from within this year, I actually held what I would consider beautifully impactful protest in the city of Manteca. And I'll do another episode to kind of walk you guys through how that came about, the steps I took to make it happen, and what we're doing now that has happened, what the next steps are, because I want to point out that you should never just have a protest. There always has to be next steps, meetings, actually putting in the work to start creating some type of change, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So it's a two-hand thing, and I want to make sure we are clear on that. So I'll make that a totally separate episode that we touch on that experience. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode, y'all. I know y'all have been waiting. Y'all been hitting me up on social media, asking when I was coming back. Well, I'm here and I'm ready. And so because this is the first episode of season 2, we're not going to have a real readback segment. And for anybody who is maybe new to the show or doesn't quite remember, the real readback segment is the section in the beginning of the show where I read you guys' questions and comments from the previous episode, and then I give my thoughts. So it's really our opportunity to engage with each other, and for you guys to kind of hear what I have to say back to whatever thoughts or comments that you guys may have had, and also an opportunity for us to kind of dive deeper into our perspectives to come to hopefully a better understanding and better respect for each other as people. Which is the entire goal of this podcast. So next week, y'all, it will be on and poppin' with the real readback segment, which is my favorite part of the show. So today, I am super, super excited. I have a very special guest. And so I just thought with the way that we ended last season, And for those of you who may not remember, we ended last season talking about finances and how to get your money right with my girl Ariana Miller, the millennial mindsetter is what she likes to call herself. And so shout out to my girl. But I just thought that since we ended that way, it'll be a great start to kind of go back to where we were and kind of elaborate on some things that fall into that same sector but don't quite talk about the handling of your money necessarily in that sense. So, without further ado, y'all, I want to bring on my favorite, my brother and my husband's best friend, Willie Greenwood. And so Willie is going to talk to us about how to get into real estate and buying and selling property even in your 20s. So welcome, Fave, and go ahead and tell our audience a little about yourself and your background.
Hey, thanks for bringing me on, Sharon. Really glad to be here. You know, one thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that you've, taken the initiative to start this channel. Not only give yourself a voice, but, people such as me who are looking to get into this type of field as well.
Thank you.
You don't know how many days it took for me to prepare, just in the sense of, wanted to make sure that everything was right. I went and got some selfie lights and got my mic set up and everything. So, definitely wanted to make sure that if we were going to do it, we were going to do it right.
I heard that.
So just to, get into things, a little bit about myself. I'm a former employee of Facebook. I was there for about 7 years. I recently left the company. In being there, when I say I was an employee of Facebook, I don't want that to seem as though I was, more than what it was. I was making an income that was, pretty on par with what most people in the Bay Area that don't have a degree, that don't have any, form specialized knowledge or skills would have. So like I said, I don't want it to seem as though working at Facebook was this, huge accomplishment. I worked there for a long time, and I worked my way up, and it was hard. Made a lot of good connections there. But yeah, that was definitely what got me started in the sense of putting myself on this path. Another thing that I've really started to focus on a lot lately is investing. I kind of start to understand how important it is to invest my time and my money, into things that I think are important. And so, yeah, I've taken a lot of time over the last 3 years. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but investing. I'm also an entrepreneur. My wife and I recently started a business. I should say 2 years ago, we started a business that is mainly focused around investing in real estate. And nice. We're also trying to start getting into Shopify and all the different things that millennials are taking advantage of today, because we live in a global economy at this point, and now it's we have access to so many more people that they weren't there 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I definitely, my wife and I, we've taken the steps to put ourselves in that position. Again, like I said, I'm a husband, but something that I pride myself on is being a dad. I'm dad of my first daughter, and we recently just received news that we're going to be having a second little girl.
Yay!
So I'm actually revealing that to you for the first time. Haven't really told anybody about
that. Goodness, I'm excited.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that we're looking forward to, definitely, most def. But yeah, it's something I take a lot of pride in. Being a dad is not something that should be taken lightly, and so yeah,
that's real.
Take a lot of pride in that.
Nah, that's real. So I appreciate that. I'm super excited, y'all. Y'all can't see my face, but I am so excited. Babies are just blessings, and I'm just excited. Oh my gosh. Okay, so thank you for that, that background information. So I have some questions for you that I'm sure our audience may have in their heads as well. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and start to dive into some of those questions, and hopefully enlighten not only, me, but anybody who hopefully tunes into this podcast. So how did you get involved in real estate investing, and how can the average person get involved?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I kind of had gotten into investing about 3 years ago. Yeah, I think it was actually January of 2017. My wife and I were introduced to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I know that's something that a lot of people have.
Yeah, okay. I've actually seen Dom reading that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure, Dom's a smart guy. I'm sure he knew about that far before I did. But yeah, it's definitely a great book to read. It changes your mindset about finances, about what's important in life. I think there's a lot of good material in there that people in our generation can definitely benefit from. So yeah, that was number one, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I can't emphasize that enough. And then another thing that was really vital to me learning the entire game of investing, but more specifically real estate investing, and how to get into the game, was YouTube. I did a lot of research, and that was after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's terminology and there are concepts that you don't understand when you're reading the book. He does a really great job of explaining things, but I'm a curious person, so I like to dive a little bit deeper into things. And so yeah, I hopped on YouTube, started just watching a lot of videos. There's a guy on there, I think his name is Chris Crone or something, don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of good information that people can find on the internet, and it doesn't require going to a university or getting any sort of
right,
specialized education or degree.
That's key too, to point that out too, that you don't have to do this mainstream idea of what we think success is. And don't sleep on YouTube either, y'all, as he's saying.
No, yeah, YouTube is I can't stress enough how much I've learned on YouTube, because I'm somebody who is a visual learner, as well as I can learn by reading. I can learn in a bunch of different ways, but visually is easily the most digestible for me, and I think it is for a lot of other people. So 100% hop on YouTube and learn a thing or two today.
Facts, like literally today. I remember my best friend called me and told me that she had a flat tire, and then called me back 5 minutes later and said, never mind, I figured out how to do it on YouTube. And so it's just like, okay, don't sleep on this tool, y'all, and it's free. Like, this is an educational tool. It's all about how you use these things. So
sure.
That's key. Another question that I have is, how do you get the funds for this? Did you just save a bunch of money? How did you go about saving this money? Like, what did you do to allow yourself to even have the option to get into this field?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of people see investing, or they see real estate investing more specifically, as this huge mountain to climb, and quite honestly, it's not as difficult to get into as you may think.
Yeah.
I actually started investing, or I should say started my journey to investing when I was $6,000 in debt. And even with that being said,
oh wow,
I should, and I want to caveat that by saying I had a partner who also had she had some money in the bank who she had saved up, and she did everything. She had prepared herself a little better than I had to that point, but we were both really new to it. So part of how we got into it was being able to access some of her funds, and I'll talk a little bit more about partnerships in a bit. But yeah, like I said, I started with $6,000 in debt. And the biggest thing for me was arming myself with knowledge, not necessarily having that money, because I knew at the time that I would make some money, I'd get myself out of debt, and things would turn around. But when I had that money to be able to invest, how was I going to be able to invest it? And so, like I said, I stopped going out, I stopped partying, I stopped hanging out with friends as much, not entirely. But I started to focus a little bit more on what was more important to me, now and in the future. And like I said, I started educating myself, and as soon as I started to educate myself, that did something for me financially that I didn't expect, and that was I stopped spending as much money. Right, I stopped going out as much. I like I said, I made better decisions with my money, and one of the things that was really important at the beginning, and I think everybody needs to do this before you even start educating yourself, and that is to get your finances in order. This is something that Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? It'll talk about it at length in the book, but you definitely have to get your affairs in order. And by getting your affairs in order, I mean sitting down and looking through your past 2 or 3 months bank statements, and just seeing what money you spend and what you spend it on, and how much of that money actually needs to be spent there. Now, I'm no hypocrite. I spend money on things that I don't necessarily need, but I make sure that I limit how much that I am spending, because I also understand that in order to work hard, you also need to play hard, and so at the time of trying to get myself settled in, it's maybe work harder, play a little softer, but still play a little bit. So yeah, and like I said, I think minimizing your debts, and just sitting down, going through exactly what you spend your money on, and then writing that down, and keeping a balance on it every month, and you'll be surprised at how much money you spend on things that you don't actually need, right?
No, that's real. Dom and I actually had to do the same thing. We finally were like, okay, we want to start buying properties. So before, we were like, people were like, oh, well, here's this agent, here's this agent. We're like, wait, hold on. First, we need to, like you said, get our money situated. And so we sat down, we looked at what we were spending. We realized that we were throwing away a lot of money on nothing. We couldn't even account for where it was going. And so we started redirecting that behavior and started saving and saving and saving. And, we set a minimum goal and said, okay, once we hit this minimum goal in our savings, we'll start, talking with realtors, getting the paperwork together, so that when it does become time, to apply for that loan or whatever the next step is, we have our foundation. So I think that's key, that you have to recognize where your money is going and if it's benefiting you. And then too, on that aspect of being able to play too, once you know kind of the breakdown of your funds, even when you do buy that thing that you don't necessarily need but you want, you're buying it now with the most informed decision, and so you can handle it. It's not a hit to your finances because you're taking care of everything in the other sectors. So I think that was a great point. I just wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, and one more point on that is I think it's really important that you not only map out your monthly expenses, but map out your annual expenses, right? And also, to take that one step further, start to think about what your 5-year plan is going to be. And when I say mapping out your yearly expenses, how much money you make, working 40 hours a week, how much money you make working 4 weeks in a month, how much you then make working 12 months out of a year, right? And so having a rough estimate of how much you're going to make this year, see how much you're going to put towards taxes, but after that, see how much you're going to be able to save based on what you spend your money on. And like I said, it may be that you save $1,000 in a year, or it may be that you save multiple thousands or $100, but saving something is better than saving nothing. And I think when we do figure out those ways to save things, we'll start to be able to invest that money.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly there. I work with teenagers, and so something I tell them a lot is, oh, you have to save, your money. Break down and see what your monthly expenses are versus where you're just spending money just because. And they're always like, well, I only make this much, so I don't even have that much to save in the first place. And I'm like, don't look at it that way. Look at it as I'm saving something, even if it's $10. At least you know you're building your foundation so that when it is time for you to go to college, you got some extra funds on you, or whatever it is that you're venturing into, you're not going into it with an empty pocket, like my mom would always say. And so I think I just think that's a great point, and that's for anybody at any age. Like, it doesn't just go for teens or people in their mid-20s or 30s. That goes for people who are grandparents at in their 60s, whatever have you. There's always a way to kind of reconfigure what you have going on. And so that leads me to my next thought that comes up is like, how did you begin to actually plan and execute buying property? You've taken the steps to get your money right, to work with your partner to kind of see where you guys are, have those important conversations. You've started to save. Now how do you go about planning and executing the next steps?
Yeah. Again, great question. So you kind of mentioned, there's planning, and there's execution. I also think there's patience. Regarding planning, it's important to budget. Again, harping on how much money you're able to spend, what you make, what you can save. Budgeting is extremely important, and it goes much further than just the real estate aspect. Like I said, it goes through all facets of your life.
Right.
And then also what are the requirements that you're looking for in the real estate market that you're looking at, right? So for instance, I would look at house size, the house type, right? You can get into a single family home. There's a multi-family home, which just simply means that there's two or more properties. Two or more units on a property.
Right.
So figuring out what you want to get into, and then also a big thing is location, right? You don't want to go into the middle of Timbuktu
Right.
and spend a bunch of money on something that no one wants to buy or there's no market for.
Exactly.
Right? It's a waste of money. But obviously, being somewhere like the Bay Area, where most of our friends and family are, it's very difficult to get in on when you're barely making enough money to pay your rent. So again, there are things that you have to balance. There are a lot of factors to consider, but all these things need to be considered. They need to be taken into account, because the more informed you are, the better decision you'll be able to make.
Exactly.
And the more likely you will be to be able to spot an opportunity when it presents itself. Budgeting and the requirements. Also, I would do, like I said, a lot of market research into the area that you're looking to invest in, such as like employment levels. What does it look like? Is it on the decline? Is it on the incline? Can you look at like the median sales market, median sales prices, where how much do houses, what's the most expensive house being sold for versus the cheapest house, and then what's in the middle, so the median, right? Because that gives you a better idea of, when you've been approved for a loan or whatever, it gives you a better idea of what you can afford. So that's why I mentioned the median.
No, that makes sense.
Sales price. And then also looking at market stability, right? There's a lot of growing markets. There's a lot of declining markets, just like unemployment and market stability tend to go hand in hand. Not always, but tend to. So it's important to keep, like I said, all these different factors in mind. So again, planning, and then my next point was execution, right? So first steps of execution are, getting yourself pre-qualified for a loan, right? Reach out to a lender, reach out to multiple lenders, I would suggest, and shop around, see, what's the most amount of money that you can get approved for a loan. And at that point, you'll know obviously what you can afford, and then get with a realtor and start looking around, looking at houses. And again, I think, the third and probably just as important point is patience. My wife and I, we spent 9 months from the point that we first started looking for a house until we actually, received the keys, and walked into the house. Took us 9 months, and it was very frustrating. We got outbid on a lot of different properties.
Same.
We overbid on a lot of properties because we started to get anxious, and we're not focused on what our requirements were that we had initially set, like I spoke about just a few minutes ago. So yeah, it just requires patience, and I think if you're informed and you're educated and you know what you want, the opportunity will come around. You'll just need to keep your eyes open and look for it.
Yeah, that's real. And I think, obviously everything that you said is super important. And I think that patient part is super major key, because you don't want to rush into anything, especially as serious as buying property. This is almost like a lifelong entanglement. And so you really want to make sure you're going into it with the best mindset as possible. And I think that's something that Dom and I are going through right now, and looking for houses in this moment, is not looking at something and already start planning, like, oh, I'm gonna put this here and I'm gonna put that there, and then you put your bid in, and you're getting outbid by people who are dropping $500,000 cash, and now you're disappointed. So then when the next thing comes up, you're jumping straight into it and overbidding. And so I think that patience part, and also being realistic and recognizing that, especially if you plan on buying multiple properties, that the first one isn't going to be the dream house. You don't want to get into anything that is, going to put you in a financial bind as far as how much you have to put into it. But you also don't want to go out there and, like I said, if you're planning for multiple properties, to go and get this 5-bedroom house with, a huge backyard that requires all of this maintenance that you may not even be ready for. So that patience part is super major key. And so, I think that's very important to touch on. And I hope, y'all don't be afraid to pull out your pen and pencil and take some notes, because this is not only, for means of yourself, but this is how you create lifelong wealth, comfortability, and stability for your family and the generations to come that you hopefully, and if you plan to produce. And so, is this something that, with that point, is this something that you did on your own? I know you mentioned, your partner, your wife, but, is this something that you guys sat down and said we're going to do together from jump, or did you guys have to get the other on board? Did you bring friends or family in? How did you go about it as far as building, a community around you to make it happen?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, my wife, she and I are I think, as on pace with each other's thought process as, a couple can be. So, we sat down, we had a conversation, we, figured out what it was that we wanted to do, where we wanted to go in our lives. At the time we didn't have any kids. So it was just she and I, and we, only had to really focus on us. So, I understand our situation was different than a lot of other people's. Some people are in relationships where, both people are struggling to get by.
Right.
And you don't have somebody financially to kind of lean on like that. But, this is where I think, the value of partnership comes into play. My wife is my wife, but she's also my partner. And we kind of look at all of our decisions that we make based on that. And so, I in having her as a partner, I also make sure to kind of build those friendships, with other people who are like-minded, who are interested in doing similar things that we are.
Right.
And so, I've to this point now partnered with a couple other people who we're actually working out in a new market where we're trying to buy some houses, and sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here, but
no,
yeah,
you're
we're
good.
we're actually looking out in a new market, and we're trying to make the best decision that we can, because we understand that the Bay Area is super expensive, super hard to get into it out here, and we also know that we're able to we have more buying power,
Right.
when we have more people involved, because more people have more money,
Exactly.
and more money buys more investments. So
Yeah.
it's extremely important, if you don't have the financial means to start an investment property on your own. Look to people, look to friends, look to family, look to people that may be potentially willing to partner with you, and that's how you may be able to get started.
Yeah, and that's super important too, because society will have people thinking that it's every man for themselves, and though you should do for yourself and make sure that you and yours is straight, it never hurts, especially in today's world, to partner with people, like you said, after researching, making sure y'all are of like mind, and are having a mutual benefit and partnering with each other. But bring your homies in, bring your cousins in. It ain't nothing like creating wealth and health with the ones that you love the most, and seeing each other strive. And so you ain't got to worry about that cousin calling you asking you for money, because you've now put him in a position to get his own. And so I think it just goes back to the analogy and the thought process of each one teach one. Once you know, and once you have the knowledge, take that back and give it to somebody else. Now what they do with that is on them. Sure. But at least you've done your part in sharing the knowledge and bridging the gap. Especially when it comes to people of color, this is an area that we aren't always well versed in. And
Sure.
So if one of us can share some knowledge, then man, so be it. And so that's why I was so excited to even have you on and talk about this topic, right? Because man, we need it. People in general need it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. That's a topic that I actually want to or a point I should say that I just want to touch on is, I also understand that, and I know that our conversation initially was going to be based around a different topic, but I think, there are a lot of people who are aware of what's going on in America today, and I think that, rather than, beat a dead horse, I think we should try to change the conversation, not necessarily to get away from thinking about the issues that are at hand, but to start to focus on our our own reality, that we're walking through the streets every day. We also have to think about ourselves as much as we want to think about others. One thing that I always say to people is, when you're on an airplane, I don't know if everybody's flown on an airplane, but they say in the event of a crash, to put your own life mask on first before helping others. And the reasoning behind that is because you're only as strong, or I should say you're only able to help others if you're able to help others, right? If you actually have
exactly
the ability to do so. And
exactly.
So that's why I've taken the initiative to learn about all this type of stuff. And I didn't have anybody telling me that I had to do it. I wasn't going to college for it. I wasn't doing any of that, but I do have a lot of friends who I've tried to encourage doing it in the past, and they kind of didn't listen to my guidance, but now at this point they see where I was at, like I said, $6,000 in debt, to now having my own personal net worth of over $50,000 in just 3 years, and a lot of that has to do with the decision making that I make, right?
Yeah.
The decisions that I make. So,
yep.
And I can't attribute that to anybody else. I can't attribute that to you, myself, or excuse me, I can't attribute that to you, my wife, my mom, right? The government. I can't attribute that to anything except
exactly.
for my own decision making.
Exactly.
And so that's something that I really want to harp on, is that, no matter how bad it gets in the world, no matter how bleak things may seem for other people, only you can control your decisions, and I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, and really you can only control what you can control. And so, if you have the will and the power to change your predicament, then by all means make sure you're doing that. And so, with that being said, y'all, I need some water. So we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. We have a few more questions for Willie. So stay tuned, y'all.
Tuned in to the real and the raw.
All right, y'all. So after our quick water break, and I hope y'all drinking y'all water too, okay? Because one is hot, and two is just good for you. Period. Okay. So drink your water. But we're gonna jump back into it with Willie. So thank y'all for staying tuned in. We have a few more questions, and for anybody who's just hopping on, we are talking about buying and selling property and just the whole aspect of real estate and how one can kind of get into it and bring others along with them if they, see fit. So, is there anything else you think people need to know in general for this entire process?
Excuse me. So I think, we've talked a lot about real estate investing, and, that's my number one. I think, there's not many other ways of investing your money that you can see the return that you do with real estate. So I definitely am super big on real estate investing, but I'm also very much a proponent of investing in the stock market as well. I think there are a lot of things that can be daunting and seem overwhelming about the stock market. But my advice is, or I should say, just the way that I approach it is to be as knowledgeable about a company as I possibly can be. Something that I'm super excited about, and something that really gets my heart thumping is Tesla. And obviously,
oh Lord, because you got Dom talking about it every day.
Yeah, that's my thing. So I love Tesla. I love that car. I don't want to say how much, but I love it a lot. So yeah, that's something that I'm infatuated with, and I do a lot of research into it. And so when there's news about it, that's always the first thing that I'm looking at. And so when it comes to investing in it and seeing what the share prices are going for, it's like, I think it's going to go much higher than that. And when I see analysts that are projecting it to reach tens of thousands of dollars, it's like, and it's only a couple $100, it's like it makes sense for me, right? It's money that I'm not using at the moment. It's not something that I have to pay my bills with. It's just, again, extra spare change that I've been saving. I didn't go out this week to go out to dinner, so I'm going to use that $50-$60 and put that towards investing. And if I eat out every day, on average, then I should probably stop eating out as much, and I can use that money to invest. So there are many different ways to find money to invest.
Making your money work for you.
Exactly. Making your money work for you is probably, that's the definition of passive income, and that's what I'm looking to grow myself. I think everybody would want to. You're getting paid to not work, and all it takes is just an investment of time and money. So I definitely think getting into the stock market, and like I said, figuring out if you like Nikes, right? If you like Jordans, invest in Nike, right? Find a company that you love and invest in that. And I think that's the best way of just letting your money, grow for itself.
No, that's real. I think about 3 years ago, if somebody would have talked to me about the stock market, I would have been like, if you don't get out of here, like, I don't have time for it. I don't want to hear it. I don't trust it. And, after having a lot of conversations with my husband and researching, I was like, oh, I'm tripping. Like, this is the easiest way to, like you said, have passive income. And for anybody who may not understand or know what that term passive income means, it literally means money that's coming in to your bank account, into your household, without you having to put in physical labor or anything like that. You're making it passively. So things like investing into the stock market, or getting a buying a candy machine, and you know what I mean. Now there's multiple streams of ways to make this happen. A lot of people, I've seen people do little websites where they post. And it's not even real jewelry. Post jewelry, and people go on there and they buy it, and now this money is coming in. I mean, it's just ways to make money that don't take up a lot of your time. And so it's just all about recognizing the areas where you can maximize opportunity. And real estate and stock market, like you're mentioning, are two prime examples of how to do that. And I think sometimes with the stock market, a lot of people get scared and they don't trust it because they are so used to this old-fashioned way of it being done, where you give somebody your money and they invest for you and then they lose it. And it's not necessarily how it works. You can run this by yourself. You can choose how many shares you want to buy, at what rate, or when you want to sell, or when you want to do whatever. It's all on you. And so I know, I don't know if you have any particular like apps or anything that you use that you think people should kind of put on their radar. I know I use Robinhood, but I know there's a whole, bunch of others.
Yeah. So no, definitely Robinhood is something that I hear a lot of people use. I personally use Charles Schwab, and the only reason why I'm using that is because while I was working at Facebook, they provide us with company stock as a part of our compensation, and so they use Charles Schwab to issue those RSUs, restricted share units or stock units, whatever. So I use Charles Schwab, but definitely feel free to use any platform. The way I like to look at it is the trading platform that you're using is the equivalent of like a phone, right? So you can use an iPhone, you can use an Android, you can use, whatever, Nokia. They're all going to essentially do the same thing. It's a matter of what does certain things better. So again, that's just a matter of you doing the research and looking up what works best for what. And then, like I said, you use that phone as the platform, but then the apps that you use are the equivalent of like the companies that you're investing in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, so you're just, if you're, like I said, if Tesla's something that I invested in, it's just my bank account, right? It's like I could put $500 into my Chase bank account, and the interest rate of return that I'm going to see on that, if it's in a savings account, is 0.001%, right? And that's equivalent to nothing.
Exactly.
Less than a penny.
Yep.
Right? But if I, for instance, put $500 into my Tesla account, my Tesla bank account, so to speak, then, we've seen already that Tesla's shares are going up, crazy amounts. And a couple of months ago, when I initially had bought in at it was around $400 a share. It now ballooned to over $1,600 a share. So if that money was sitting in my bank account, it wouldn't have made that amount of money. And obviously there's risk involved that maybe Tesla would tank. But, like I said, I have a very firm understanding of Tesla, the company. So I understand that's not likely to happen. Therefore, I put my money there. And if, I hear some bad news, I can always take my money out.
Exactly.
But I invest for the long term. I invest not just to make a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 and pull out. That's day trading, and that's a completely different topic. But I'm talking about long term stock investing, where you're buying and holding that position, and watching that money grow over time.
Yeah, no, that's real, and I think it's something. It's a great way how you put it, using the bank account analogy. You know what I mean? If you invest in, you putting your money into Wells Fargo, it's not giving you anything back. You're actually making them money, and they're not doing anything for you. And so if you think of it as, okay, I'm placing this
and they
money
actually
in
charge you for the bank account.
Exactly. And if I instead place this money into my Nike account, which is really Nike stock, it's a form of mutual benefit for me. I'm going to get something out of this, and like you said, it's for the long haul. Now, if you want to make certain deals where it's short term and it's something quick for you, then that's fine. But you also should always be looking at how over time this money can grow, and the value of it will grow with that. And so that kind of leads me to the next question that I think would come up for me and maybe others who are tuning in is, so obviously this process can be very stressful. Anytime you're talking about dealing with money and the output of money instead of the necessary always coming in, it can be stressful, scary. It can be hard to remain patient and things like that. So what are some key things that you do or that you and your wife do together to keep your mentality right, and just dealing with this type of situation? It can be scary, especially when you talk about investing in stock, and we always kind of want to hold on to our money, but just having the mindset of being okay with letting it possibly go also. So what are some things that you do around that you think help keep you in a healthy mindset?
So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's about being healthy, having a healthy mindset, but the way to do that is to develop healthy habits. And I think, again, going back to the airplane analogy, it's very important to focus on yourself before trying to focus on other things and other people, because it's not long-term sustainable. I think developing those healthy habits, getting the appropriate amount of sleep. I know it can be hard for some people. Some people have insomnia. Some people, work jobs, multiple jobs. Some people have kids. It's very difficult, I know, to get sleep, but we have to do everything in our power. I'm not just saying this based on my own experience. It's just something that experts have agreed is important, is to get the appropriate amount of sleep. And you do, speaking from my own anecdotal experiences, you do see a difference in your mood, your demeanor, your focus levels, your abilities, to retain information. I can't tell you how much it's benefited me just to get 8 hours, wake up in the morning and then drink some coffee, right? As opposed to sleeping for 3 hours and trying to drink coffee to bring me up to that 8 hours, right? So it's definitely important getting your sleep, making sure that you're eating appropriately. You're not just stuffing yourself with things that are easy, but things that are going to actually provide you with something. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a health nut. I'm not a vegan. I'm not anything like that. My wife, contrary to traditional gender roles, does actually make a lot of our meals, but that's based on the fact that she enjoys cooking, not because it's her duty.
That's okay. It's the same for us.
So, and she that's what she cooks. She likes to make a lot of healthy things. Lucky for me. Unlucky for me in the beginning, I wasn't very, very fond of eating so many vegetables and
Tom said the same thing.
Bland, tasteless foods, but
oh my gosh,
you begin to get that gain that appreciation for it. And so again, eating healthy, getting a lot of sleep, also developing routines. At this point, we're in a pandemic. Everybody's kind of going through the motions. I'm sure you guys are tired of it. I am, I know for sure. I can't wait until we, find some sort of normalcy. But, I think developing a routine is vital. And, one thing I do every morning when I wake up is I roll over and I check the stock market and I see how well my shares are doing, because then at that point I can make the decision if I need to transfer that money out of that bank account and into something that's going to be a little bit more stable, right? So yeah, it's about developing those routines, those habits. And then lastly, obviously most important, and I think everybody hears this all the time, is making sure that you exercise. And
Yes.
it gets pretty difficult for me personally, because a lot of my exercise I used to get from going to the gym and playing basketball, and really, just running around and whatnot. But now that everything's closed down, it's been difficult. And I ran cross country in high school. I'm not very fond of running with no purpose. So for me, it's been kind of hard to kind of get over that mental barrier. But as soon as you do, you start to immediately reap the rewards. So yeah, I think it's important to sleep, maintain a good diet, develop some good routines, and exercise.
Yes, definitely, and especially on the part of exercise. I know exercise for me is super important for my mental health. It's something that I have to do, or at least try to do 3 to 4 times a week. And it's not to say that I'm perfect. Like, there's weeks where I may not work out at all, but you can definitely feel the difference in my mood when I am getting my daily workouts. And I know, with the quarantine and everything, like you said, the gym's being closed. At first it was hard for us, but then we realized we really don't even need the gym. So we ordered a bunch of stuff and have been getting in, I would say, just as good work, if not better, at home. And it's actually inspired us to do more, so that actually when we do finally get a property, our own house, we'll have our own gym in our garage, or something like that. And that's another way to redirect some of those funds that were going towards the gym, somewhere else that can benefit us in the long run. And right. So that exercise, and then definitely for me, drinking water, like I mentioned all the time. And if you guys know me, I carry around I think it's a little less than a gallon, my water bottle, with me at all times. And everybody knows, I take it everywhere. But I can never say that I'm thirsty. I will never have the need to go and buy a soda because I don't have something to drink. And so it just makes, all the difference as far as the functioning of my organs and making sure my brain is working appropriately, so that if I do have to look at the stock market, I'm not doing it from a halfway perspective. And right. So that leads me to our final question, which is, do you have any final thoughts? Obviously, I want you to give your contact information, and I'll also tag it in the YouTube details. It'll be down below for anybody who missed it. While he mentions it, it'll be there for you guys to reference for later on. But I just want to see if you have any thoughts about anything that you want the people to know. And I also want to make it clear, you guys, that Willie is not claiming to be a professional or anything like that in this field. He is literally just talking about the basis of his lived experience in real estate investment. And so I don't want you guys to hang on his every word, but I also want you guys to have taken notes or come back and reference this episode, and then go on and do your own research. And if you have questions later on, you can definitely ask him and go from there. But I just want to, make it plain and clear that he is not, or I am not, claiming to know everything and claiming that if you follow these steps exactly, you're going to be the most successful, richest person ever. No. You got to do your own work. You got to do your own due diligence. But we, like we mentioned, want to share the knowledge, from our lived experiences and what does work for us, and in hope that it does empower you to find what works best for you guys. So with that being said, is there anything else that you want to throw out there besides your contact information? And make it clear too, y'all, he is married. This is not he's not trying to get y'all to be throwing out anything else. It's purely for financial empowerment and things like that.
Yeah, thanks for the last part, for sure. I have a lot of thoughts. I could go on for hours, but I think I want everybody to kind of just, if you take anything from this podcast, is that life is what you make it. It's really important to stay focused on the future. Obviously, we're not guaranteed the next minute, but we can always, look to the future and keep an eye on the present. And I think, for most people, it can get difficult. Again, even if you're barely getting by, your payments are barely, able to make you're barely able to pay your bills. I get it, but at a certain point, there has to be some personal accountability. Sharon, you knew me when I was, living out of my car. Obviously you've known me since way before that, but you've seen, where I started, where I went, and now where I'm at.
Yes.
So, if anyone's a testament to it, I would like to think that I am. And if anybody is by any means looking for some sort of advice or tips or anything that I can help provide, I'm more than happy to help. Definitely feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware. I'm by no means a professional. I've only been doing it for 3 years, and in that short amount of time, I think I've gained a lot of knowledge. And if you want to fact check anything that I say, I encourage you to look up things for yourself.
Right.
And empower yourself with knowledge.
Exactly. Yep. You gotta, see it for yourself, hear it for yourself. And so we're hoping, that this was empowering. I know, it's definitely empowering for me every time we have these conversations. And I think it's also great to be able to even have these conversations with your friends. A lot of the times, friends, and I'm doing air quotes because a lot of the time friends shy away from these types of conversations because they may challenge some complacency or whatever it is. And so I love that we can always dive into these conversations and learn and grow from each other and help each other. And it's beautiful. And so y'all heard it. Y'all heard the knowledge that Willie just dropped. It's no excuse not to go do your own research and see what options you have with this financial opportunity to create what we have, like I said, continuously talked about on this podcast, which is generational worth, really creating a legacy and a wonderful foundation for not only yourself, but your children, your grandchildren, or whatever you tend to produce out of this world. And so I want to thank you, Willie, for coming on and sharing this very important information and showcasing how tangible it is for younger people of color, but really anybody to dive into buying and selling property and the stock market and just honestly maximizing your dollar as much as you can. And it's not so that you can be rich or greedy, but it's so that you can be comfortable and really lead the life that you wish to live. Y'all really just, hit him up. He's going to drop his contact information if you have questions. We'll actually be trying to, and we're going to be planning, I'm not going to say trying, we're planning to have him back on so that we can continue to talk about these things or any new information that pops up, or any other topics that we, feel can empower and uplift our community. And so I want y'all to make sure you stay tuned so that you can catch him when he comes back. But for now, we will see you later, Fave. I want to thank you again. Major shout out to what you and your wife and your family in general are doing, and super congratulations on the new baby girl. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. So I will see you next time, and I will make sure you guys to drop his information below. And so thank you again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. So y'all heard it. That's my boy Willie. He dropped some amazing knowledge for y'all. So let's make next episode's real read back poppin', y'all. Dive into the comments and ask me any questions based on today's episode. Drop any questions you have for our guest and just let me know what's up with y'all, man. It's been a long time. I ain't seen y'all, I ain't heard from y'all. I want to know what's going on in your lives as well as telling y'all what's going on in mine. And I always love a chance to exchange dialogue with y'all. So Subscribe to this podcast on Podbean. Yes, you heard it. We are now on Podbean. Go ahead and download that app. It is free. But subscribe to this podcast on Podbean at The Real and The Raw, or subscribe to us on YouTube at Queen Rennie Barnes. Also, email us at realqr@gmail.com. I'll say it again. realqr@gmail.com for any comments or questions you want anonymous to the audience. And so as a reminder, how that will work is I'll read your comment or question, but I will not state your name. Therefore, nobody will know who it came from. All right? Man, it is so good to be back. I cannot wait to see you guys next week. I will say that we're going to try and drop weekly, but I'm not going to stick to a certain day. So I will give you guys ahead of time notice before episodes drop. But you can be sure to catch today's episode on August 16th at 6 o'clock on YouTube and on Podbean. Catch us next time. Sending peace and love. Queen Rennie out.